Chapter 1594. Elvis's eyes were still looking down at Gu Meng Meng. The redder her face became, the darker his face became. Gu Meng Meng only retracted her gaze obediently when she heard the sound of teeth grinding above her head. She buried her entire face into Elvis's chest. Actually, she did not have the intention to take in a new partner, but since he danced so hard, wouldn't it be a waste if she did not watch? But it would not be good to cause some family conflict just to feast her eyes, right? Even if a young man in the modern world wanted to peek at a lady, he would not dare to do it in front of his wife, right? Gu Mingming's little act of burying her face really pleased Elvis. The malevolence on his face disappeared instantly, and he only felt that this ostrich was so adorable. So he lifted her little chin and kissed her deeply on the lips. Acting as if there was no one else around, they were deeply entangled. He kissed until Gu Mingming's whole body went limp and was almost out of breath, before he released her reluctantly. He used his thumb to gently wipe away the remaining saliva at the side of her lips, gritting his teeth and saying, "I really can't wait. I can't wait for you to give birth to her today." Gu Mingming's face turned red because of the lack of oxygen. She pouted coquettishly and punched Elvis's chest, saying, "If I give birth today, it will be premature." Elvis choked and said with a serious expression, "That won't do. Leah said that you must be pregnant for a full month, or else it will not be good for you and your daughter." "You still know?" Gu Meng Meng glared at him. Gu Meng Meng could not be blamed for being pretentious, it was just that this brother's expression of desire was too obvious. She felt uncomfortable sitting on his lap. How many years had they been a married couple? Wasn't it just because she was pregnant that she could not have sex with him? Did he have to be so high profile and show how wronged he was in public for how long? All males in the world are the same, they are all animals that think with their lower bodies. Gu Meng Meng mumbled and stiffened her neck, not looking at Elvis anymore. Elvis shook his head helplessly and said, "Silly girl, this is a display of my love for you. If I don't get hard when I see you, then what will happen to your future happiness? Don't be angry, it will affect your daughter badly." Gu Meng Meng became even angrier upon hearing this. She turned her head and asked, "In your eyes, am I important or daughter important? Now that you have her, you don't care about me anymore. You're not afraid of my anger, but you're only concerned about whether your daughter will be affected. Elvis, doesn't your conscience hurt?" Leah had told Elvis before that it was normal for pregnant women to be unreasonable due to their fluctuating emotions. Moreover, in Elvis's eyes, when had Gu Meng Meng ever been wrong? She was angry. It was obvious that he had said something wrong. He was the one who was wrong, not her. Since he was in the wrong, Elvis naturally apologized with a good temper, coaxing and teasing her. But just when Elvis was apologizing to Gu Meng Meng, a mermaid swam over and stood in front of Gu Meng Meng, saying, "Mighty messenger, I am the third-level mermaid beast Jimmy, can I invite you to swim in the sea with me? I know a place with a beautiful view." "I think you're dreaming too." Elvis raised his eyebrows and sneered, "Let's see if you have the ability to take my female away from my arms." Jimmy did not seem to be afraid of Elvis, who was the Beast King, at all. In other words, males were fearless when it came to courtship. Chapter 1595. The corners of Elvis's lips curled up slightly, revealing a devilishly charming cold smile. "No, you are wrong. I am not stopping you, I am giving you a chance." Jimmy tilted his head and looked at Elvis, as if he did not understand what was going on. Elvis stood up and placed Gu Meng Meng on the seat. Then, he took an unknown fruit from the table and gave it to Gu Meng Meng. "Xiao Meng, be good. Sit here and eat some melon and watch the show." "Hubby." Gu Meng Meng felt that this was the ocean and not Elvis's home ground. It was better to avoid trouble. She could just reject Jimmy, there was no need to blow things up. But Elvis cupped the back of her head and planted a kiss on her forehead. "Don't worry, it will be settled very soon." Gu Meng Meng was speechless, Elvis let go of Gu Meng Meng and took 2 long strides to stand in front of the mermaid beast. With this comparison, Gu Meng Meng realized that Elvis was much more muscular than Jimmy. His body proportions were also better and firmer. It was just that he was always hugging her every day and rarely had the chance to show his body in front of her. As a result, Gu Meng Meng had almost forgotten how stimulating it was when she looked at Elvis from afar. She really did not know the true face of Mount Lu. It was only because she was in this mountain. TSK TSK TSK, it was no wonder Elvis was angry just now. Hugging a mountain of gold and digging for potatoes, no one would be happy about who was the mountain of gold. While Gu Meng Meng was reflecting and criticizing herself, Elvis had already opened his mouth to speak. If you want to woo my female, shouldn't you first issue a challenge to me? Elvis lowered his head slightly. He did not need to release his pressure as the oppressive aura of a beast king completely enveloped Jimmy. Elvis chuckled. With the absolute confidence and calmness of a superior, he said calmly, "Isn't accepting your challenge giving you a chance? We are in the ocean," Jimmy reminded. Elvis nodded and chuckled. There is no reason to stop a male from protecting his female, no matter where or who he is facing. Jimmy nodded in agreement and said, "Okay. Since that's the case, let's compete in the ocean. This is not fair." Gu Meng Meng panicked and instinctively said, "Elvis is a land beast, he can't breathe in the sea, how can he compete?" Jimmy wanted to woo Gu Meng Meng and naturally would not go against her wishes. Whatever the female he liked said was right. "Alright, let's compete here and not in the sea," Jimmy compromised without any principles. But Elvis did not appreciate it and said, "You don't have to give in to me, hubby." Hubby. Gu Meng Meng was rather worried. Elvis stretched his neck left and right, then stretched out his long arms to hug Gu Meng Meng and kiss her. "It's alright, I'm suffering from internal heat and need a cold shower to calm down. Just eat your melon and watch the show." Gu Meng Meng wanted to say something more, but Elvis pecked her on the lips again. He squinted his eyes and gave her a reassuring smile. Feeling helpless, Gu Meng Meng could only sigh and return to her original spot without making a sound. She silently watched Elvis and Jimmy walk past the edge of the bubble and into the sea. The sea was the territory of the mermaids. Even though Elvis was powerful, he had a very important weakness, which was that he only had 1 breath left. Chapter 1596. Gu Meng Meng gritted her teeth in her heart, but maintained a faint smile on her face. If Elvis lost, how was she going to reject this Jimmy later? While Gu Meng Meng was plotting in her heart, Jimmy had already launched his attack on Elvis. Jimmy was a righteous mermaid and disdained using underhanded methods. Otherwise, he would have just lured Elvis far away and depleted his breath to win. There was no need for him to attack so hastily. Elvis replied with a cold smile. All is fair in war. Giving up one's advantage for the sake of so-called morality was not righteousness, it was stupidity. Elvis tried to move his fist. There was indeed a strong resistance in the water. Even if he swung his fist over, it would probably be useless. Thus, he gave up on the idea of a hand-to-hand fight and just stared coldly at Jimmy, waiting for his attack. Mermaids were extremely fast in the water. Even a beast king like Elvis could not see his movements clearly due to his limited vision in the water. However, vision was only a small factor in a battle. More importantly, it was the body's memory and instinctive sense of danger. So, when Jimmy's webbing was like a sharp knife aimed at Elvis's neck, Elvis's sharp claws were 1 step ahead of Jimmy and had already grasped Jimmy's throat firmly. Tilting his head and smiling, the beast pressure suddenly erupted, creating a huge ripple in the water. The ripple quickly pushed outwards, forming a powerful undercurrent, causing the scales of all the mermaids present to explode. That kind of fear was emitted from the depths of their bones, and could not be resisted. Jimmy was just a 3rd-level beast and he was in such close proximity to the Beast King's pressure, so he naturally could not withstand it. His eyelids rolled back and he fainted, revealing his original form. Elvis was merciful, or else Jimmy would have been squashed into a fish meatball. It was not that Elvis had become merciful, it was just that Gu Meng Meng was pregnant and such a bloody and violent scene was not good for his daughter's prenatal education. She was a little female, as long as there was a beautiful fairy tale in the world, it would be fine. When Elvis carried the fainted Jimmy back into the bubble, the row of mermaids who were prepared to express their goodwill to Gu Meng Meng all sat upright and still, not daring to act coquettishly in front of Gu Meng Meng anymore. Elvis threw Jimmy in front of them and said calmly, "He doesn't look like he can take a beating, take good care of him." Yes. The mermaids understood that Elvis was indirectly expressing one word, scram. Thus, the row of mermaids carried Jimmy, who had transformed into his true form, out of the bubble. At the same time, Leo was walking back with a thick bunch of poisonous shellfish tendons. He looked at Jimmy's corpse and then at Elvis. The two of them exchanged glances and instantly understood what was going on with this row of mermaids. Chapter 1597. Melinda lowered her head and smiled, replying to Carter using sound waves. She told him about Elvis's actions and concluded that even if she had the intention to make arrangements, those mermaids would have been scared out of their wits by Elvis. Who would dare to approach Gu Meng Meng? Gu Meng Meng also understood that Elvis's actions just now were not due to Jimmy's provocation. He was making an example out of her and using an instant kill to awe those mermaids who had their imaginations running wild. That was the only way to settle things once and for all. But this made the situation a little awkward. After all, Melinda had good intentions. So Gu Meng Meng cleared her throat and said, "After making arrangements for the kiss of the ocean, I will be staying in the desert for a while. Sigh, the sandstorms there are strong and there's no water source. Just thinking about it makes me miserable." Melinda was not a fool. How could she not understand that Gu Meng Meng was giving her a way out? She was saying that she would not be living in the ocean forever and mermaids could not leave the water for long periods of time. So she would not take in ocean tribesmen as partners. This was considered a proper official statement. Melinda did not have any intention of currying favor with Gu Meng Meng. She just thought that mermaids were handsome and had a different style from land beasts. If Gu Meng Meng liked them, she would naturally be happy to see it happen. But from the looks of it, Elvis and Leo would not agree so easily. And Gu Meng Meng herself did not seem to have any intention of expanding her family. So she would not force it. The banquet was still going on, uninterrupted by this small incident. Singing and dancing to celebrate peace and prosperity made it feel like the immortality peach banquet in the heavens. After all, the mermaids were the only race in the beast world that knew music. Birds could also sing, but they did not know how to play musical instruments. They could only use their throats to produce sounds. But mermaids were different. They could produce different sounds by hitting different kinds of shells, corals, tortoise shells and rocks. Finally, they produced a harmonious melody. Compared to a concert in the modern world, it was boring. But it was the most exciting performance Gu Meng Meng had seen in so many years in the beast world. Leah passed the shellfish tendon to Gu Meng Meng and whispered into her ear, "I have tested it. The tendon without flesh is not poisonous. What do you intend to do?" Gu Meng Meng took a piece of shellfish tendon and pulled it in her hand. It was very elastic, just a little too thin. Thus, Gu Meng Meng took 3 shellfish tendons and braided them into a braid. Then, she strung the red coral beads together, 18 red coral beads in one string. She tied a dead knot at the end of the string, then made a simple china knot on the basis of the dead knot. Below the china knot, she tied 2 pieces of scrap pieces of the red coral beads, and the red coral bracelet was completed. Gu Meng Meng wore the bracelet on her wrist and smiled at Elvis, asking, "Hubby, does it look good?" Elvis rubbed Gu Meng Meng's little head dotingly and indulgently. "In my eyes, you look good no matter what. TSK, glib tongue." Not a single word is true. As she said that, the corners of Gu Mingming's lips curled up. Elvis cupped Gu Mingming's little chin and looked straight into her eyes. The tenderness in his eyes was deeper than the ocean. He said seriously, word by word, I have seen you crying in your most pathetic state. I have seen you in your most unkempt mourning. I know how irritated you are during your period. I also know how fragile you are when you feel sad for no reason. I have seen you at your best and at your ugliest. But regardless of beauty or ugliness, I like it all. As long as it's you, I can't move my eyes away. Aside from the topic, today's update has ended. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1598. Gu Mengmeng didn't answer Elvis and just pecked his chin sweetly. Then, she nestled in Elvis's arms and watched Melinda's performance as she knitted the bracelets. She wore the first one on her wrist, the second one for Elvis, the third one for Leah and the fourth one for Melinda. Gu Mengmeng finished knitting the remaining corals and shellfish tendons. There were still 7 left. 4 sons and the one in their tummies needed 5 bracelets. Sandy wanted 1 bracelet, there was still 1 left. Gu Mingming's gaze swept around and landed on Oratin's face. Although they did not have that kind of relationship, Oratin was still Gu Mingming's guardian beast in the eyes of outsiders. She had to at least maintain her image, so Gu Mengmeng gave the last bracelet to Oratin. Oratin was a straight man and did not have much interest in jewelry. He was more interested in the plate of meat in front of Gu Mengmeng. But as a male, he still had the bottom line. He really could not snatch a female's food. But Oratin did not mind, while Fei Rui liked it very much. His clear big eyes kept staring at the bracelet on Oratin's wrist. There was no lack of corals in the ocean, but the problem was that the poisonous shellfish was too difficult to obtain. He definitely could not get it by himself. And even if he got it, he did not know how to knit Gu Mingming's braids, nor did he know how to knit a China knot. So, the raw materials were all from the deep ocean. But as a prince of the ocean, he did not have such a bracelet. Sob sob sob, he really wanted it. Oratin looked at Fei Rui and raised his hand. You want it? Fei Rui nodded honestly. Is it very obvious? Oratin was expressionless. Yeah, every time I see meat, it looks like this. Fei Rui smiled embarrassedly and did not reply. Oratin took off the coral bracelet from his wrist and handed it to Fei Rui. This is for you. Really? Fei Rui's big eyes lit up. He looked at Oratin with admiration. But just as he was about to take it, he hesitated and lowered his head. This is a gift from the great messenger. Everyone in your family has one. If you give me yours, I don't mind, Oratin answered honestly. He wasn't consoling her. As long as Leah cooked regularly, he really didn't care about anything else. Fei Rui still did not dare to take it, but he really wanted it. Hence, he jogged over to Gu Mengmeng and looked at her expectantly with a pair of eyes as clear as the stars in the sky. Great messenger, Oratin said he is willing to give me that string of red corals. Can I have it? Gu Mengmeng stared blankly at Fei Rui. Instead of answering, she asked, I have already given it to Oratin. If he is willing to give it to you and you are willing to take it, just keep it. Why are you asking me? Fei Rui smiled awkwardly and said, I was afraid that if I accepted that string of red corals, you would be angry with Oratin and not dote on him anymore. Gu Mengmeng almost choked on her saliva. She and Oratin were really just family in name, and Oratin probably did not need her pampering. In this family, the person he needed the most was probably Leah. Thinking about this, Gu Mingming's gaze drifted towards Leah. Chapter 1599. So, when Gu Mengmeng looked at him and Oratin with that gaze, Lee's hair stood on end. He squinted his long and affectionate eyes and asked with a dangerous smile, Xiao Mengmeng, what are you thinking about? Gu Mengmeng felt like she had been caught in the act. She chuckled and shook her head to deny that she was not thinking about anything. After getting Gu Mingming's approval, Fei Rui happily received Oraton's red coral bracelet and wore it on his wrist. He happily showed it off to everyone and even pulled Melinda's hand to show it off for a long time. This made Carter extremely helpless and he could only clench his teeth and say, "You are Melinda's brother, I will tolerate you." That night, Gu Mengmeng stayed at the bottom of the sea. The next morning, Melinda, Carter and Fei Rui accompanied Gu Mengmeng to the location of the Kiss of the Ocean. If she was not sure that she was in the sea, Gu Mengmeng would have suspected that she was looking at a galaxy in the Milky Way. A black pearl floated in the center and the surroundings were filled with a layer of black poisonous fog. It looked like a Hollywood sci-fi movie where a galaxy was observed from a spaceship. However, the color was not dazzling and there was only dead black. There were many shells floating in the poisonous fog. The shells moved slowly, like the sloth lightning in Zootopia. They opened and closed slowly, as if they were eating the poisonous fog. Gu Mengmeng did not have Snake's tear of the beast deity to protect her and did not dare to get too close to the poisonous fog. She could only stay at a safe distance and pointed at the poisonous fog. "Leah, did you get the shellfish tendon from these shells yesterday?" Leah nodded in agreement. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her chin and thought seriously. "When I took the Kiss of the Ocean back then, it was in a huge shell. Do you think it was eaten by a poisonous shellfish like that?" Fei Rui secretly bit his lower lip and pulled Gu Mengmeng's arm. He shook his head and said, "No. No." Gu Mengmeng was confused. Fei Rui took a deep breath and tilted his head at Gu Mengmeng. He smiled and said to Gu Mengmeng, "Do you know about the legend of the deep sea, great messenger?" There was another legend. Gu Mengmeng was now a little sensitive to the word legend. Back in the desert, Higgin told her a legend and then he died. In Modo, Grace had told her a legend, and then Grace had died. Now, Fei Rui was going to tell her a legend. Frowning, Gu Mengmeng asked instinctively, "Can I not listen?" Fei Rui chuckled and said, "Let's hear it." This legend is related to the Kiss of the Ocean. Gu Mengmeng face-bombed, that feeling of unease growing stronger. Fei Rui did not wait for Gu Mengmeng's reply and just sat on the back of the turtle beside her. He transformed his fishtail into his legs and hugged his knees obediently. He tilted his head to look at Gu Mengmeng and said, "Legend has it that this black pearl was not originally called the Kiss of the Ocean. It was just a poisonous pearl produced from these poisonous shellfish. Although it was poisonous, it was not to the extent that it could disperse in the ocean and not disperse." Chapter 1600. Fei Rui seemed to understand Gu Mengmeng's confusion and just grinned. His smile was always so clear and clean that whenever he smiled, it was as if the surrounding poisonous fog was purified. Fei Rui continued hugging his knees and looked at the black pearl in the middle of the poisonous fog. He took a deep breath before continuing. About 1,000 years ago, there was an extremely venomous snake that fell in love with a female. Gu Mengmeng was speechless and instantly immersed herself in the relationship between the characters. An extremely venomous snake, little shit. A female. Wang Xiaoxin. The characters in the legend were all familiar people. This setting really hindered one's interest in listening to the story. Forget it, what legend? I'll just treat it as gossip. But this female didn't love him. She even hated him, rejected him, and wanted to kill him. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. This version clearly did not match the truth. Gu Mengmeng did not forget the scene of Little Shit and Wang Xiaoxin reuniting. One said lovingly, "I hate you so much, why did you make me wait for so long?" The other said affectionately, "Sorry, I came back late." Putting aside the fact that Wang Xiaoxin had plotted for 1,000 years in order to resurrect Little Shit, she had lured her to search for the 7 treasures step by step, and even sacrificed her own son. Just based on these 2 sentences alone, it was filled with the stench of adultery. Even if it was not love enough to shatter the heavens and earth, it should be unforgettable. How could it not be love, or even hatred? This was not logical, really not logical. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Did you remember wrongly? Fei Rui looked at Gu Mengmeng in confusion. He shook his head seriously. There are not many legends in the deep sea, especially when the mermaid tribe has been the guardian of the kiss of the ocean for generations. So I will definitely not remember this legend wrongly. Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. She could not figure it out no matter how hard she thought about it. She could only raise her hand. All right, continue. I will listen. Fei Rui nodded. Although the female was very resistant, that snake beast was unusually overbearing and unreasonable. He was also very powerful and unpredictable. In order to prevent the female's mate from finding her, he tied her up and hid her in the deep sea. As Fei Rui spoke, he turned to look at Gu Mengmeng. The method that Melinda made for you was passed down from 1,000 years ago. At that time, the snake beast also made a bubble like this for the female so that she could move and breathe freely in the deep sea. Gu Mengmeng laughed dryly. Free movement and breathing. Within a limited area, he could move and breathe freely while being watched. What kind of freedom was that? Let's call it jail. Moreover, with such a depth, there was no chance of escaping. Chapter 1603. He obtained an ancient secret recipe from the elders of the ocean tribe. There is no antidote for the poisonous shellfish pearl and he can only exchange his life for hers. As Fei Rui said, he pointed at the black pearl floating in the poisonous fog and said, "It was born in the poisonous shellfish, grew up in the poisonous shellfish and belongs to the poisonous shellfish. If he wants to save that female, the only way is to eat the poisonous shellfish king and then kiss the female. Mouth to mouth, he will suck the black pearl into his body." Gu Mengmeng frowned and did not say a word. The males in the beast world were not afraid of death for the person they liked. They were brave and blind in love and would never be stingy with their lives. She could even imagine how overjoyed the mermaid would be when he found out about this antidote method. His entire mind was filled with the thought that Wang Xiaoxin could be saved and he did not have the slightest bit of rationality to think about how he would lose his life. The mermaid swallowed the entire poisonous shellfish king and swam towards the shore with all his might before the poison attacked his heart. Finally, he saw the female who was about to meet the snake beast under the afterglow of the setting sun. The poisonous shellfish king was stuck in his throat and his vocal cords were already destroyed so he could not make any sound. He could only use his tail to slap the surface of the water to attract the female's attention. Even though the poison of the poisonous shellfish king made his skin burn in pain, he did not care and just slapped the surface of the water with all his might, splashing countless waves. Finally, he successfully attracted the female's attention. The female ran to the beach and asked him what was wrong. He could not speak and could only hold the female tightly and kiss her lips. At this point, Fei Rui turned around to look at Gu Mengmeng. His eyes shone with a light that seemed like he understood, as if he was longing for it but also as if it was just an ignorant fantasy. He said, "It was said that the scene at that moment was frozen. It was so beautiful that even the waves could not bear to attack their kiss. That was the most peaceful moment in the history of the ocean, without any waves. The setting sun gilded them with the most beautiful glow, just like a pair of gentle hands, gently protecting their first kiss, once in a lifetime, the only kiss." The poisonous pearl in the female's body was sucked into the mermaid's body by the poisonous shellfish king. The two poisons caused the mermaid's skin to start festering. He used the last of his strength to push the female away and told her that she was free and the snake beast could no longer use this pearl to threaten her. As for the mermaids, they threw themselves into the sea, sacrificed their broken bodies to the beast god, and stayed in the sea forever. Chapter 1604. Fei Rui nodded with a smile, then opened his mouth. This action made Gu Mengmeng break out in cold sweat. She frowned and her eyes widened in shock. She held onto Fei Rui's shoulders tightly with both hands. What did you do? Fei Rui was still smiling. His eyes were as bright as the stars, clearer than the ocean and more flawless than the moonlight. I am the Prince of Bridges, and also a tribesman of Saint Nazir. Fei Rui smiled as he spoke. But the blood trickling down from the corner of his lips stung Gu Mingming's eyes. Fei Rui's bright smile was tainted with a heart-wrenching pain. Moreover, I like the Great Messenger the most. I want to protect the deep sea line, and also, the Great Messenger. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she reached for Fei Rui's throat, wanting him to spit out the poisonous shellfish king. But Fei Rui grabbed Gu Mingming's hand and left a mark on the back of her hand. Then, he smiled at Gu Mengmeng. Great Messenger, don't be sad. My death can protect the entire ocean. It is my honor. After saying that, Fei Rui leaned back and charged into the poisonous mist. That pair of eyes that were as bright as the stars were smiling the entire time, looking at the crowd not far away. His most precious sister was there. But his brother-in-law was really reliable. He would protect Melinda well, so there was no need to worry, his most important friend was there. But Li's cooking was so delicious, Oratin should be living a blissful life. His most beloved Great Messenger was there. Oh no, the Great Messenger was crying. But it was all right. Her partner was so strong and loved her so much. He would definitely be able to coax her. Sorry, Great Messenger, I didn't want you to cry. But, I still feel very blessed to have all of you send me off on my last journey. Forgive me for my selfishness. I really don't have the courage to complete my last journey alone. Finally, thank you, for listening to my long story. Fei Rui dispersed the poisonous fog. He turned around in front of the kiss of the ocean and swallowed it into his stomach. He could feel that the poisonous pearl was corroding his throat along his chest, slowly moving downwards. Great, it was sucked into the shell by the poisonous shellfish king. Fei Rui heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he slowly closed his eyes. It was as if the Milky Way in the night sky had disappeared. There was not a single star left. Fei Rui. Gu Mengmeng felt a burning sensation in her chest. She screamed at the top of her lungs as if it was tearing her entire chest apart. How could this be? Why would Fei Rui do something so unexpected? Yesterday, he was still acting coquettishly towards her, asking her if he could accept the bracelet Oratin gave him, but today, Melinda stepped forward and held Gu Mingming's wrist. Her eyes were red but she tried her best to smile. She said to Gu Mengmeng, Great Messenger, don't cry. Chapter 1605. I stopped him. Melinda glanced at Gu Mengmeng and then at Elvis. She didn't continue. Gu Mengmeng choked. She narrowed her eyes and asked Melinda, so, those mermaid males you arranged yesterday? Melinda nodded and said, they are the most outstanding mermaids that I chose. They are willing to exchange their entire lives for a kiss from you. Gu Mengmeng really didn't know what to say. Her heart ached for Fei Rui, but other people's lives were also lives. Melinda seemed to know what Gu Mengmeng was thinking about, so she pulled Gu Mingming's hand and said, I know I am very selfish, but if possible, I don't want my brother to sacrifice himself to protect the pearl. So I prepared those. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, I don't blame you. Yes, she had no right to blame Melinda. Didn't she sacrifice Miranda's child to protect her own child? In times of life and death, human nature was always selfish. Gu Mengmeng looked at Melinda's bloodshot face that was still forcing a smile. In the end, she could not bear to scold her and could only sigh heavily. You should have told me earlier. Maybe I could have stopped Fei Rui. Melinda's eyes were bloodshot. Melinda forced a smile and shook her head. If no one swallowed the poisonous shellfish king to absorb the kiss of the ocean, this pearl would continue to release poisonous fog and attract all the poisonous shellfish in the sea. When its poison dissipates, this black pearl will become an ordinary pearl, and the kiss of the ocean will cease to exist. So, someone must sacrifice himself to absorb the kiss of the ocean back into the poisonous shellfish king. Only then can the poisonous shellfish king continue to nurture it. Only then can the kiss of the ocean still exist when the next messenger of the beast deity arrives 1,000 years later. There was no such thing as a cheat in this world for no reason. Every benefit you obtained was paid for by someone else in silence. But some prices were hidden and you didn't know. And some prices were displayed in front of you in a bloody manner, letting you know what guilt was. Gu Meng Meng clutched at her chest as she looked at Fei Rui, who was curled up into a ball and sleeping like a baby. She watched as his body was slowly corroded by the poisonous fog until it completely disappeared, turning into a puddle of black fog. And in the middle of the fog, there was a small shell that was half a finger long and 2 fingers wide. It opened and closed slightly and the poisonous fog was absorbed bit by bit. Fei Rui didn't even leave a corpse behind. His flesh and blood became nutrients for the poisonous shellfish king to nurture the kiss of the ocean. His flesh and blood became the nutrients for the poisonous shellfish king, Gu Meng Meng, Gu Meng Meng, and Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng looked at Gu Meng Meng. And the poisonous shellfish kings. Gu Meng Meng felt and felt. The poisonous shellfish king into Gu and Gu Chen Vi. Chapter 1606. The poisonous shellfish king fell into the mud at the bottom of the sea, and then the mud started to change at a speed visible to the naked eye. First, the color turned as black as ink, then the corals and seaweed on the mud withered and died as if their life was sucked out. Then, they were sucked in by the black mud, as if they had fallen into a swamp. The small fish that could not escape in time flipped over, then fell into the mud and were also swallowed. Gu Meng Meng recognized that this was no longer mud, but a swamp at the bottom of the sea. When she went to retrieve the kiss of the ocean, it was little shit who carried her all the way there. Now that she thought about it, if the person who accompanied her was not little shit, no one would have been able to withstand this poison. Even Snake would not have been able to withstand it. Was she going to suffer the consequences 1,000 years later for the sin she committed back then? She did not forget that little shit's skin was almost completely corroded by the poisonous fog, and his wounds were so deep that his bones could be seen. So now that she was the one who planted the seeds of evil, 1,000 years later, should she be the one to escort the next messenger of the beast deity to retrieve the kiss of the ocean? Without Snake's tear of the beast deity, she was no longer immune to all poisons. By then, she would probably die here, right? Wasn't it ironic that the mighty beast deity would die from the poison of the kiss of the ocean? Elvis tightened his arms around Gu Meng Meng's waist and kissed her little hand. He hugged her in his arms and said softly, "Now that things have come to this, there's no use being sad. Fei Rui is a responsible male. We won't forget him." Gu Meng Meng nodded and leaned lightly against Elvis's chest. "I came to settle the kiss of the ocean, but never thought that it would be settled in such a manner. I thought that nothing would happen as long as I forbid others from swearing to me, but, other than swearing, it turns out that legends can also kill people. I don't want to hear any legends in the future, no one is allowed to tell me legends anymore." Elvis chuckled, feeling rather helpless. In the beast world, the lives of males had always been as cheap as grass. Not to mention Fei Rui, who sacrificed himself for justice, there were many males who sacrificed their lives for the sake of pleasing their females. Just how many males had died because of Nina in the past? Who would feel the slightest bit sad? The males in the beast world were ferocious and aggressive. There were countless deaths and injuries every day. It was survival of the fittest and the winner would take all the food. This was the truth of the beast world and also the standard. No one would shed tears for the weak. No one would even remember the males who died because they were not strong enough. Only Gu Meng Meng valued the lives of males so much. Chapter 1608. The change of the Beast King was such a big matter, it was easy to find out about it. Kanwu was now taller than Gu Meng Meng by a head and a half. If Gu Meng Meng wanted to hug her son, she had to first wave her hands and make her son bend down. This meant that her son had really grown up and was a mature male now. "Mom, why do I have a feeling that you are going to abandon me?" Kanwu walked to Gu Meng Meng's side and tugged at the corner of her shirt. "Don't tell me you despise me for being a male now that you have a younger sister?" "Mom, I am your precious son after all. You can't just abandon him just like that, right? I won't fight with my younger sister for your affection." Gu Meng Meng poked Kanwu's head. "What's in your head? You are also a piece of flesh that fell from your mother's body. Back then, I almost sacrificed my life to give birth to you. How can you use such heartless words to mock me today?" "Ha! Mom, I was wrong. Hee hee." Kanwu had always been a straightforward person. Seeing Gu Meng Meng poke him, he did not get angry and just laughed dryly. Gu Meng Meng sighed. "But Kanwu, Mom can't follow you for the rest of your life. Your second brother also has his own things to do. You have to grow up and learn to be independent." Upon hearing that, Kanwu immediately exploded. "Mom, are you still going to abandon me? Then, how about this? Mom, I found you a new lover. He's quite fun. Why don't you?" Before Kanwu could finish his sentence, he was sent flying by Elvis's kick. His face was so black that ink could drip out from it. "New lover." Elvis clenched his teeth and squeezed out word by word. "Do you want to die?" Gu Meng Meng hurriedly stopped Elvis. She patted his chest and said, "Children speak without thinking. They are just children talking nonsense. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Domestic violence isn't right." Leah pulled Gu Meng Meng back from Elvis's arms and hugged her in his arms, not allowing her to stop Elvis. With a fake smile plastered on his face, he glanced at Kanwu who had been sent flying, then looked at Gu Meng Meng and said, "I feel that other than the amazing medical skills in that world, some of the proverbs are also very reasonable. For example, a loving mother produces spoiled children, a filial son is born under the rod, an unpolished jade is worthless, a son who doesn't get spanked is a failure." Gu Meng Meng finally understood that Kanwu's new lover was like poking a hornet's nest. Elvis and Leah were most afraid of this. Sigh, this silly son, why did he only grow taller and not grow a brain? Saying such words in front of these two vinegar buckets was really asking for a good death, just like his father. But, no matter how much he wanted to court death, he was still her biological son. Gu Meng Meng definitely could not watch as her two Beast King fathers bully her second-level son. So he pushed Leia hard. Chapter 1609. Elvis sighed helplessly and stood on the spot without moving. He said calmly, "I am the Wolf King." "I know. I am the Wolf Queen, so what?" Gu Meng Meng straightened her neck and roared. Leo was laughing so hard that he could not stand up straight. He placed one hand on Elvis's shoulder and pointed at Gu Meng Meng with the other. "Have you forgotten? Gu Meng Meng said before, a pregnancy makes you stupid for 3 years. Ha ha ha, we are going to have a hard time these 3 years." Elvis sighed and repeated, "Queen, I am the Wolf King." Gu Meng Meng was bewildered by his laughter, but she could not lose her stance. She straightened her neck and repeated, "I know. So. Cough." Kanwu climbed up from behind Gu Meng Meng and wrapped his long arms around Gu Meng Meng's waist. Then, he turned her behind him and laughed out loud, "Mum, I am an adult male. I will be laughed at if I hide behind a female to avoid a battle. Don't forget, the warriors of the wolf tribe are never afraid of battle or death. Most importantly, you're the only female in our family. Whether it's your two crazy partners or us four brothers, none of us are cowards who hide behind you when you're in danger. Instead, we're the armor that stands in front of you. You're the one who should be protected, understand? Gu Mengmeng was a little touched by her son's words and her eyes watered instantly. Son, before Gu Mengmeng could say her touched words, Kanwu laughed suddenly and said, moreover, Mum, you are really a little silly now. Your crazy partner is the Wolf King. If he wants to kill me, he doesn't even need to step on your corpse. He just has to stand there and stare at me and I will definitely die. Waving his fist at me proves that he has no intention of killing me. You suddenly pounced on me and made me so emotional that I am embarrassed, ha ha ha. Gu Mengmeng really wanted to give Kanwu a hard slap, but she clenched her fists and eventually only poked Kanwu's head. She comforted herself by saying, biological son, you are really my biological son. Kanwu grinned foolishly and hugged Gu Mengmeng's shoulders, saying fawningly, Mum, seriously, why don't you get to know that new lover? Thick brows, good skin, broad shoulders, narrow waist and perky butt. Bang! Before Hu Jinwu could finish his sentence, he fell heavily onto the ground. Just as he said, Elvis did not even move his feet. He just raised his eyebrows and Kanwu was already sprawled on the ground, unable to get up. Mom! Kanwu begged for mercy and howled. Gu Mengmeng glanced at him coldly and said, you can just speak, why are you so touchy? Release my son, now. Elvis took a deep breath and did not let go of Kanwu. Instead, he walked to Gu Mengmeng's side and pulled her into his arms. He looked straight at Gu Mengmeng with his blue eyes and asked, do you have any thoughts about the new lover he arranged? No. Gu Mengmeng answered without hesitation. These two words successfully pleased Elvis. She gave Victor a shove and said, you can pretend to be an elder in front of me after you've chased after my mom. Hurry up, don't dawdle. Victor also gave Kanwu a shove, then tidied up his beast-skin dress. He looked up at Gu Mengmeng and said, we meet again. I'm actually quite good. Why don't you try? You can abandon me if you're not satisfied, I won't blame you. Try. These two words shocked Gu Mengmeng so much that she felt like she was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. How could she try this? Gu Mengmeng felt a mouthful of blood rolling in her chest. She really wanted to vomit it on Victor's face. Did this child's head get squeezed by a door? This was a tacit understanding between the two of them, and he shouldn't be the one to break the ice. Mom, I know. Seeing Kanwu's dejected look, Gu Mengmeng's heart ached again. She hugged Kanwu in her arms and comforted him. Even if I am not by your side, I still love you. I know that you have good friends by your side and will have a gentle lover in the future, so I am very reassured. You too, you have to know that Elvis and Leah will always be by my side. They will take good care of me, so you don't have to worry, understand? Kanwu nodded, like an eggplant that had been hit by frost. Chapter 16:12. Actually, he was already an adult. When other males transformed into half-orcs, they should have left their parents and started their own family, but he still lived under his parents' protection for 3 to 4 years. It was not that he did not have the ability, it was just that he was like a kite. Because he was tied to a string, he knew that even if the wind stopped blowing, he would still have a place to return to, so he dared to fly around the sky without any fear. But when the string suddenly broke, he was at a loss. If he had known earlier, he would not have dreamed of being a hero. He should have stayed by Gu Mengmeng's side obediently. It did not matter if others laughed at him as a useless person, he should have cherished the time he could spend with his mother, but now, it was too late to regret. Kanwu lowered his head and did not make a sound. Victor tried to get closer to Gu Mengmeng, but was stopped by Oritin. The reason was very simple. Leah whispered into Oritin's ear, our family only needs one tiger. In other words, if Victor caught Gu Mingming's eye, Oriton's rice bowl would be gone. Snatching a rice bowl from a foodie, you are really courageous. While Oriton and Victor were having an in-depth discussion, Elvis had already carried Gu Mengmeng back to their previous cave. Placing Gu Mengmeng at the entrance of the cave, Gu Mengmeng held Elvis's hand on her left and Li's hand on her right as they entered the cave. Everything here was the most familiar. When she first came here, she was like a blind person. She could only move a little near the entrance of the cave and could not see anything else after entering. On the right side of the cave was the cloakroom that Elvis had dug for her after she came. Because she said that it would be too wasteful to throw away such a good fur coat after wearing it once, so all the clothes here were her old ones. They were made of different materials and styles, all neatly arranged. It was obvious that someone had taken care of them meticulously. Because of Cole, Gu Mengmeng had not returned to Saint Nazaire for 2 years, so who was the one taking care of this cave for her? Gu Mengmeng looked back and her gaze landed on Barit, who was standing at the entrance of the cave. Barit frowned and chuckled, "Am I not the messenger's guardian? The messenger is not around, so I have to take good care of her things." Gu Mengmeng returned an apologetic gaze and chuckled. "Barit, these few years, it's been hard on you. It's what I should do. Who asked me to owe you?" Barit's gaze was filled with melancholy. There was an indescribable bitterness, but also an indescribable pleasure. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "No, Barit, you don't owe me anything. Oakley's incident was planned by Cole and it has nothing to do with you. You don't have to blame yourself for it and you don't have to repay any debt because of it." Barit lowered his head and avoided Gu Mingming's gaze. His lips were pressed into a straight line, unable to say the words "I just need a reason to protect you." Gu Mengmeng patted Barit's shoulder and said, "I'm leaving, you should let it go too. The 16 valued females in Saint Nazaire are the first beauties of each tribe. I have someone I like." Barit still did not look at Gu Mengmeng, his eyes staring straight at the ground. Chapter 16:13. Barit did not look up the entire time. He opened his mouth, but the words that had been swirling in his chest were eventually crushed and reshaped between his teeth. In the end, it became an unrecognizable Barit. Gu Mengmeng heaved a sigh of relief at the fact that she had a sweetheart. She had already harmed Snake and delayed Gregory. If she dragged Barit into this, she was afraid that she would not be able to sort out this list of emotions even if she used 1,000 years. But she did not realize that Barit's gaze, which had been staring at the ground the entire time, was looking at her shadow. After she turned around, Barit then looked up. The deep affection in his eyes was as deep as the ocean, with turbulent undercurrents. "I did not lose you, because I never got you, so to me, losing is an extravagant term. But it's all right, as long as you can be happy, I don't care about anything else. If you want to fly, then fly. I'll stay where I am and guard your things for you. No matter when you're tired and want to rest, everything here will be the same as when you left. You'll always have a familiar home, a familiar Barit, waiting for you at the same spot." That night, Gu Mengmeng gathered the 16 valued females for a bonfire party. They talked about all the interesting things that happened in Saint Nazaire in the past 2 years when Gu Mengmeng was not around. When Gu Mengmeng heard the 16 valued females praising Barit, her heart calmed down even more. Matters between women were never easy to resolve, but Barit was unanimously praised by the 16 valued females. Everyone said that he was a warm man who treated everyone especially well. Gu Mengmeng jokingly said that Barit was like the central air conditioner of Saint Nazaire, but Barit just smiled without saying a word. He was nice to the 16 valued females only because they were chosen by Gu Mengmeng. And every time he mentioned the 16 valued females, Gu Mengmeng would always have a proud look on her face. How was he warm to the 16 valued females? He was just guarding the things that she was proud of. It was no different from guarding the old clothes in that cave. Gu Mengmeng stayed in Saint Nazaire for a full 2 months, walking through every inch of the land. It was the salt lake where Elvis had first met her. She had molested Elvis here and tried to kill herself here. She had made a ruckus there for a long time. The platform of the deity's punishment when she first met Leah. At that time, she had even called Leah Beauty and Leah Daddy. She had also saved Barit, who was on the brink of death there, and even fought with Nina there. Because of a nosebleed, Sandy had caused such a ruckus that she thought she was going to die, and the territory where she had dug potatoes and sweet potatoes, she had visited every place once with Elvis and Leah, recalling the scenes that they had experienced over the years. Everything that she had felt tragic back then had become sweet now. 2 months later, Gu Mengmeng had planned to make a trip to the Mecca desert before winter arrived and settle down the heart of the desert. Then, she could die without any worries. But before she walked out of Saint Nazaire, she felt a sharp pain in her stomach. Gu Mengmeng clutched her stomach and her face instantly turned pale. Large beads of sweat started dripping down her face and she was in so much pain that she could hardly breathe. Chapter 16:14. So, when Gu Mengmeng furrowed her brows, he immediately knew what was going on. Elvis, original form. Elvis panicked and his mind went blank, completely unable to think. He could only rely on their years of tacit understanding to reveal his original form without saying a word when he heard Lee's words. Leah placed Gu Mengmeng on Elvis's back and did not rush Elvis to return to the cave. Instead, he said, "Stand firmly and don't tremble. Once Gu Mengmeng's first labor pain is over, carry her back to the cave immediately." Elvis did not even dare to nod and only blinked his eyes to show that he understood. He did not forget the pain of childbirth that the beast deity, oh, no, Wang Xiaoxin made him experience in the illusion realm. Whenever he thought of that pain tormenting Gu Mengmeng, Elvis felt as if his heart was being stabbed by knives. If it was possible, he was willing to bear the pain of childbirth 10 times in exchange for Gu Mengmeng's current suffering. But unfortunately, this was the only thing in this world that he could not do for her. Other than feeling heartache, there was nothing else he could do. "I'm fine. I'm fine." Gu Mengmeng obviously knew what kind of torture her pain was to Elvis and Leah. She tried her best to smile. Even though her hair was instantly drenched in sweat and stuck to her face, she still tried her best to smile. She was afraid that these two fellows would go crazy and say something crazy like they were going to crush the child. Every time she gave birth, she had to fight her husband with all her might. This feeling was really terrible. "Don't talk, conserve your energy and stabilize your breathing." Leah frowned. He was really very conflicted about Gu Mengmeng's stomach. This was the child he had been looking forward to for 5 years. Even though it was not born yet, it was still a piece of his heart. But this piece of his heart was tormenting Gu Mengmeng so much, he could not deny that he had the urge to personally cut it off. Gu Mengmeng nodded and did as she was told. She adjusted her breathing according to the frequency of Lee's raising and lowering hands. The pain gradually lessened and Gu Mengmeng finally revealed a big smile. She said, "It's all right, I can bear it. It's not that painful." Before Gu Mengmeng finished her sentence, Elvis had already shot out like an arrow. Before Gu Mengmeng could scream, Elvis had already placed her on the beast skin bed in the cave. Gu Mengmeng did not know if she should say it out loud. Bringing a pregnant woman, bringing a pregnant woman to ride a roller coaster was inhumane. Inhumane. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng did not look well, Elvis was extremely worried. He held Gu Mengmeng's hand with concern and asked, "What's wrong? Does it hurt again?" "Ha!" Gu Mengmeng snorted and turned her head away, not wanting to talk to this idiotic husky. Once Leah entered the house, he immediately asked Elvis to start a fire, while he quickly cooked all the food in the house, in preparation to replenish Gu Mengmeng's energy at any time. Oratin received Lee's orders and brought the males of Saint Nazaire out to hunt. Even though the males of Saint Nazir would always be out hunting at this time of the year and the surrounding tribes were already used to it, but this time, the two messengers had left their caves and the males were in a killing frenzy. No matter how big or small they were, they would not let anything go. Even the ferocious beasts that they would never touch during their hunts in the past were now ready to risk their lives and pounce on them, biting them to death and dragging them back to Saint Nazir. Chapter 16:15. This caused the surrounding tribes to be in a state of panic. Could it be that Saint Nazir was stocking up on food in preparation for a war with someone? But wasn't Cole already dead? Could it be that another great demon king had appeared? The surrounding tribes tried to send people to Saint Nazir to investigate, but the wild wolves and foxes surrounded Saint Nazir so tightly that not even a fly could pass through, not to mention the orcs. Originally, the orcs did not care about wild beasts, but, firstly, there were too many of them, and secondly, these two types of wild beasts were obviously under the orders of the two beast kings. If they fought with them, it would be equivalent to directly challenging the beast kings. Haha, looking at the ferocious Saint Nazir tribesmen pouncing on their prey today, which tribe could withstand such a powerful attack? Even now, the two beast kings and the great messenger had yet to appear. Hence, the crowd could only return to their own tribes resentfully, and started to actively set up defenses, but did not dare to snatch prey from the Saint Nazir tribesmen at this time. Actually, there was no need for such a crazy hunt. The main reason was that there was a little loophole in the transmission. Leah told Oriton, prepare food to replenish Mingming's energy, so that she won't be exhausted halfway through giving birth. What will happen if she is exhausted? Oriton asked. Leah said faintly, 2 lives in one body. Of course, Leah would not allow such a thing. By then, even if Gu Mengmeng would fight him to the death, he would definitely kill this daughter with his own hands to protect her. But Oriton did not know what Leah was thinking. He was a fool, 2 lives in one body, how could that be? Hence, he hurried out to make arrangements. His originally expressionless face now furrowed his brows, and with a heavy tone, he told everyone, the great messenger needs food, or else she will die. Hence, Saint Nazir exploded. The great messenger will die because of a lack of food. How could that be? Barit did not believe it at first, and wanted to see what was going on. But just as he reached the entrance of the cave, he smelled a strong scent of blood. He recognized this scent, it was Gu Mingming's blood. Previously, when she was plucking potatoes, she cut her hand and he was there too, so he recognized the scent of her blood. Barit's mind jolted as he turned around and ran without a second word, taking the lead in hunting for Gu Mengmeng. This attitude greatly agitated the males who were already agitated to begin with. Damn it, if they let the messenger of the beast deity die in their own tribe because of a lack of food, as males, they would not have the face to live anymore. Not to mention that taking care of females was the natural duty of males, taking care of the messenger of the beast deity was the duty of everyone in the beast world. Just Gu Mengmeng alone, who in the entire Saint Nazir had not received her grace. Which one of them had not benefited from her before? It was all thanks to Gu Mengmeng that the females and their families could comfortably survive the 2 seasons of winter and drought. Even if Gu Mengmeng was not the messenger of the beast deity, they would never let her die from a lack of food just because she was a person. And this kind of agitation would affect each other, just like adding firewood to a burning fire continuously. It would be strange if the fire did not burn even more. Gu Mengmeng was tormented by the labor pains in the cave. Without the tear of the beast deity, her hearing was not as good as before, so she did not know that there were rumors outside that she was about to starve to death, and needed all the food in the beast world to survive. If she had heard it, she would probably be so angry that she would fart her child out. Aside from the topic, this was the last time Susu told everyone about Heaven's vision in the beast world. Chapter 16:16. Leah made use of the time when Gu Mengmeng was not in pain to start a second fire to boil water. At this moment, an uninvited guest appeared. It was a familiar face, Joshua, the current witch doctor of Saint Nazir, the first-level ape who had wooed Gu Mengmeng before. He was already a first-level orc when he wooed Gu Mengmeng. 2 years had passed and he was still a first-level orc. Let me do it. Joshua took the firewood from Lee's hands and threw it into the fire. You? Leo was stunned for a moment but still nodded. After all, it was normal for a witch doctor to guard the door when a female was giving birth. Even Leah had guarded the entrance of the cave when Nina was giving birth. It was just that Nina was the one laying the eggs back then, so it didn't take much effort for her to lay them. Although she smashed all the eggs in the nest and none of them survived, the rule of a witch doctor guarding the door of a female giving birth really existed. Moreover, the bellies of the 16 valued females in Saint Nazir had been unusually neat for the past 2 years. Every year, a few of them would get pregnant and give birth. As a result, Joshua, the newly appointed witch doctor, had more experience in delivering babies than Leah. So, since Joshua was the witch doctor of Saint Nazir now, he should naturally be the one guarding the door. Moreover, there were not many males in the family and they did not have enough manpower. Although Joshua was not strong in battle, his medical skills were not bad. Moreover, Leah had mostly learned theoretical knowledge in the illusion realm and it was all theoretical knowledge. It was his first time going into battle personally. Leaving someone with actual combat experience at the door would at least be of help. Moreover, that idiot Oriton had already brought everyone to hunt. Now, he could not even catch one to stay back to help. Looking at the mountain of animal carcasses in front of his house, Leah really wanted to pinch Oriton to death. But, rather than letting this idiot stay in the cave to create trouble, it was better to let him go out and go crazy. Anyway, winter was coming and these prey would not go to waste. After Gu Mengmeng gave birth, he would arrange for these prey to be distributed to the 16 valued females to tide over the winter. Anyway, as long as that glutton Oriton did not come back at this time to create trouble and harm Gu Mengmeng, Leah did not care about anything else. With Joshua in charge of boiling pots of water at the entrance, Leah had the time to accompany Gu Mengmeng in the cave. Her labor pains were getting more intense. Based on the childbirth knowledge he learned in the illusion realm, Leah knew that it was not long before Gu Mengmeng gave birth. Gu Mengmeng, who had experienced childbirth once, knew that her precious daughter could not wait to see her. Gu Mengmeng knew that her baby daughter could not wait to see her. It was just that Gu Mengmeng had never thought that foxes were so much bigger than wolves. Why did it feel even more painful than when Canwa was born? The labor pain came again and Gu Mengmeng screamed her lungs out. She gripped the beast's skin beneath her with all her might and clenched her teeth, concentrating all her strength on her abdomen to push the child downwards. Elvis hugged her head, just like what Leah did when she gave birth to Heda and his brothers. His blue eyes were filled with heartache, as if a blunt knife was constantly cutting his heart. Elvis brought his hand to Gu Mengmeng's mouth and said, "Bite me if it hurts." He remembered that Gu Mengmeng had taught Colin this when Sandy was giving birth. Chapter 16-17. This was clearly not a fox's head, but a baby's head. Gu Mengmeng screamed in pain. As she exerted force, the baby's little face was already exposed. Leah wanted to lick the placenta, but, it was not a fox and did not have a placenta. How could he lick it? His tongue was already out, but he froze on the spot, not knowing what to do. Elvis glared at Leah and said, "What time is it now? Why are you still in a daze?" Leah did not know how to describe his feelings at that moment. He had been through many storms, but now, he was at a loss of what to do. He had all the theoretical knowledge, but he was not mentally prepared. For the past 10 months, he had always thought that he would be delivering a little fox, but this little fox was quite different from what he imagined. Gu Mengmeng exerted force again, and the baby slipped out. Leo was shocked and hurriedly caught his little princess. His eyes brimmed with tears as he looked at Gu Mengmeng, who was gasping for air like a fish out of water. He choked with sobs and said, "Meng, it's been hard on you, thank you. I love you. Don't talk nonsense." Gu Mengmeng said weakly, "Bite off the umbilical cord, tie a knot, then carry her for me to see." Yeah. Leah did as he was told, using warm water to wash the child clean before wrapping her up in a soft beast skin and placing her beside Gu Mengmeng. He kissed her face and said, "This is the first time I've seen a newborn that is a complete female, and this most special child is our daughter." Leah nodded and said. Gu Mengmeng smiled as she looked at the little red person in her arms. Her motherly instincts were radiating. Gu Mengmeng kissed her precious daughter, then looked at Leah and asked, "Aren't you going to kiss her?" Leah shook his head and said, "Other than you, I won't kiss anyone else." Gu Mengmeng chided, "Pretentious." But she did not say anything else. Elvis saw that Gu Mengmeng's delivery was rather smooth, and heaved a long sigh of relief. He handed the baby over to Leah, then laid Gu Mengmeng down properly. As they tidied up the messy room, they said, "Maybe, now is the best chance." Leah was taken aback. He looked at the newborn baby girl in his arms, feeling extremely reluctant. Before they met, he could ruthlessly say that he wanted to kill her to protect Gu Mengmeng. But after witnessing her birth with his own eyes, Leah felt that he now had two hearts, one for Gu Mengmeng and the other for the little princess. No matter which one he cut out, it would still hurt. But Elvis was right. Thanks to Oriton, the entire beast world now knew that Gu Mengmeng's life was in danger. This was the best opportunity. After all, even acting couldn't be that realistic. Turning back to look at Gu Mengmeng, who had fallen into a deep sleep on the bed, then at the soft little child in his arms, Leah hesitated for a moment before nodding his head. "Kanwa happens to be here. Let him take care of this little sister." Lee's gaze was fixated on his youngest daughter's face. She had her eyes shut and was sleeping soundly like her mother, completely unaware that she had to be separated from her daughter the moment she was born. Every word that Leah said was like a sharp needle that pierced his heart. This child was equally precious to Elvis. As long as it was Gu Mengmeng's child, it would be his treasure. How could he bear to part with this little baby? Chapter 16-18. Leah thought for a moment and nodded. "Then let's discuss it with Gu Meng when she wakes up." Elvis didn't say anything else and just continued to pack up the things in the room. Giving birth consumed a large amount of Gu Mengmeng's energy. Without the protection of the tear of the beast deity, Gu Mengmeng's body was extremely weak. After sleeping for a full day and night, Gu Mengmeng slowly opened her eyes. And this one day and one night was known as unconsciousness in the beast world. Elvis and Leah discussed their plan with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng couldn't bear to part with her newborn daughter, but she also knew that this was the best opportunity. If she didn't make use of it, it would be extremely difficult for her to escape in the future. So, the next day, Gu Mengmeng sat at the entrance of the cave with Elvis carrying her while her face was pale and weak. Strangely, there was no wind within a kilometer radius around Gu Mengmeng. Obviously, this was Gregory's protection. Gu Mengmeng called Kanwo over and handed her daughter to him. She instructed him to bring her to the Snake King Valley and hand her over to Qi Xian. Kanwo looked at his mother's weak state and his eyes turned red. He clenched his teeth and couldn't say a word. In the end, he just nodded his head cautiously. Gu Mengmeng's heart was filled with guilt. She made up her mind to explain everything to her son after the act. A mother faking her own death to deceive her son. Haha, there shouldn't be a mother more mischievous than her in this world. But she had no choice now. The more sorrowful Kanwo acted, the more real the news of Gu Mengmeng's death would be. Anyway, it was difficult for females to give birth. Many females had died giving birth to females, so the credibility was not low in the first place. Coupled with Oratin's hard work, no one would suspect that Gu Mengmeng had a difficult birth. In front of everyone, Gu Mingming's hands dropped and she acted out the beauty fades. It was a beautiful death. Elvis and Leah released their Beast King aura at the same time and pretended to lose control. They did not do it for any other reason than to prevent others from coming forward to cry. As long as they neared, they would realize that Gu Mingming's tightly shut eyelids were trembling and her eyeballs were rolling non-stop. Then, all their efforts would be wasted. After pressing everyone onto the ground, Gu Mengmeng hurriedly carried her little daughter in her arms, while Elvis carried Kanwo and Oratin on his shoulders. Leah carried Gu Mengmeng and her mother and quietly left the tribe that the two of them had created. Gu Mengmeng stood at the entrance of Saint Nazaire and could not help but look back. This was the hard work of Elvis and Leah, and also the tribe that she had been working hard to protect for the past 5 years. This place contained too many memories between them. There were joys and sorrows. Chapter 16:19. But it was different this time. She was really going to leave. A person who was already dead probably wouldn't be able to come back. Elvis rubbed Gu Mingming's little head. He was already used to her melancholy. He kissed her face and said gently, "Wherever you are, that's where our home is. Don't be sad, Leah and I will always accompany you." Gu Mengmeng was taken aback for a moment, then she smiled and nodded. Yeah, the cave was not her home, only being with Elvis and Leah was the feeling of home. If not for the two of them, what was the point of her guarding the cave? Although those memories of the past were precious, they would not disappear just because she left Saint Nazaire. It was just that without those traces of remembrance around her, she might slowly forget many things. But so what? As long as the two of them were still by her side, they would have even more precious memories, right? With that thought, Gu Mingming's mood became much better. She hugged Elvis's neck and kissed his face, saying, "Yeah, you're right." Passing by the lake where she first met Elvis, Gu Mengmeng suddenly laughed. "Ha!" Elvis asked her with a single syllable, asking her what she was laughing at. Gu Mengmeng said, "I feel that you guys are right to call me a little liar. I seem to have been lying since the first day I came to the beast world." Elvis frowned and asked, "What did you lie to me that day?" Gu Mengmeng sniffled and smiled. "I said that I would not take responsibility. But look at me now." Gu Mengmeng tugged at her collar and said, "Not only did I get a partner, I even gave birth to a son for you. TSK. What happened to the prodigal image of only flirting and not taking responsibility?" Sigh. "I didn't know that I had such a talent for lying." Elvis also smiled and pinched her little face, saying, "In this lifetime, I only ask you to keep one promise. As for the rest, I don't mind. Moreover, you lied especially well when you said not taking responsibility." Of course, Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis and Leah wanted her to keep her promise. As long as she said not abandoning them, as long as she did not go back on her word, no matter what she did, they would forgive her. Wang Xiaoxin said, "Beast deity doesn't lie, this is the biggest lie." I think it makes a lot of sense. If you want to be an honest beast deity in the future, you should start from never saying, "I don't lie." Gu Mengmeng giggled. Elvis kissed her little face and said, "All right." With the wild fox and wolves leading the way, Gu Mengmeng and said, "Saint Nazaire's death, Gu Mingming's death." Saint Nazaire had attracted the attention of most people, making it easier for Gu Mengmeng and the rest to move around. When they returned to the Snake King Valley, Qi Xian had already prepared a large amount of food in Snake's Cave. When he saw Gu Mengmeng, he smiled knowingly and said, "I knew that you would come back before winter, so I have already prepared the food. You can stay here in peace. I will guard the entrance, and I guarantee that no one will disturb you during the winter." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and handed the little girl in her arms to Qi Xian. "We are here to let you take care of her." To say, to. Chapter 1620. Her name is Danya. Gu Mengmeng replied. Qi Xian carried Danya while smiling and playing with her little chin. He called out softly, "Little Danya, I am your second brother. Come, call me second brother, all right?" It would be a miracle if a newborn could speak. But although little Danya could not speak, she knew how to smile. She grinned, revealing her pink gums. Her eyes narrowed into two crescent moons and there were two adorable save-me's on her chubby little face. Her smile melted Qishuan's heart. Younger sister was a magical thing. She had trained the young master of the stray beasts, who was full of hostility, into a domestic dog. Many years later, when little Danya came of age, the ones guarding the tower for her would not be her first partner or suitor, but her four brothers at the four corners of the tower. As a result, little Danya, who had a sister complex, could not successfully date anyone after she came of age. All her suitors were chased away by her four brothers. Her four brothers even said righteously, "Our younger sister must not mate with a male who is inferior to us." Only the heavens knew that her four brothers were the most famous males in the beast world. Her eldest brother had an extraordinary aura, as if he was the ruler of the world. Third brother's intelligence was unparalleled. He could control the curtains and determine victory from 1,000 miles away. Many enemies had not even seen his face and were already trapped in a prison, unable to move an inch. Fourth brother was extraordinarily brave and fierce, like a war god descending into the abyss. Just one look at his pair of vicious eyes would make one shudder and retreat without a fight. Not to mention the second brother, he was unusually handsome but full of demonic aura. He never acted according to the rules and killed according to his whims. Most importantly, he was just a third-level orc, but had the ability to make fifth-level orcs tremble in fear. No one had ever dared to be impudent in front of him, and no one dared to test his unfathomable abilities. He was the master of the stray beasts who made everyone tremble in fear. He looked down on the world and no one dared to go against him. It was these four devils who acted cute and silly in front of little Danya. As long as they could make their younger sister smile, they would not hesitate to wag their tails and beg for pity. As a result, little Danya became the envy of all the females in the beast world. It was not because her mother was the messenger of the beast deity, nor was it because her father was the beast king. It was because she had four good brothers who doted on her to the bone and spoiled her to the heavens. Of course, this was a story for the future, so let's not talk about it for now. He only said that after Gu Mengmeng handed Danya to Qi Xian and Kanwu to take care of, she brought Elvis, Leah, and Oriton to the Mecca desert before winter arrived. This was currently the safest place, and it was also the last stop for the 7 treasures. Because no one would set foot in this demonic territory that lacked food and water. Elvis used the beast skin to cover Gu Mengmeng as the sand danced in the air. Because Wang Xiaoxin had left and Gu Mengmeng had inherited the position of beast deity, many erased memories had returned to her mind. For example, Permitha and Fedadan City. Spring has passed, the hair has turned white, the thoughts are lonely, and a strand of sorrow is cut off to cover the eyes to blind people. Today, I'm heartbroken. Today, we're on different sides. There's no hope for us to meet again in this life. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng and walked in the desert. Gu Mengmeng leaned on Elvis's shoulder and sang softly. They stood outside the once-forgotten Fedadan city again. Half of the broken walls had been buried by the sand, but in the center of the city, a faint red light emitted a charming temptation. Aside from the topic, why was Qi Xian so strong? Did everyone still remember the leaf that floated into his head? It's very lonely to live here alone. Oriton let out a cold laugh from his throat, but his expression did not change at all as he said, "Before I met you, not only was I alone, but I was also pushed out wherever I went. Later, when I became stronger, I started to be harassed endlessly. To me, it was a wonderful thing to be alone and not be disturbed. Besides, I don't want to lose any more friends. Chapter 1622. Oratin seemed to know what Gu Mengmeng was thinking about. He patted her shoulder and said, "How do you know that the person who comes 1,000 years later will not fall in love with me? Who knows? I might be the next snake, meeting a special person 1,000 years later, giving color and meaning to my life. The next snake, wouldn't his heart be ripped out?" Furthermore, Gu Mengmeng looked down at the red spider lily in her hands. Not only would his heart be ripped out, he would also end up in a messy state and sleep for 1,000 years. Becoming the next snake was really not a happy ending. Moreover, although Snake did not know how to express himself, he unexpectedly fit the image of a domineering CEO in the modern world. The chances of little girls liking him was much higher than Oratin, who only had food in his eyes. He had a body full of fur, but he did not know how to make use of his advantages like Leah. Gu Mengmeng did not even dare to think about Oratin acting cute. In the beast world, where the ratio of males and females was so disparate, did Oratin really have a way to fight against the other males and stand out from the crowd to win the favor of the next messenger of the beast deity? What if the next messenger of the beast deity did not like his dull character? Or, what if the next messenger of the beast deity did not know how to cook? By then, even if the other party grew a flower, Oratin would not be willing to mate with her, right? What did he say previously? Oh, right, he said, "I am not interested in females, I am only interested in food." Gu Mengmeng really felt that the chances of Oratin successfully breaking free from being single after 1,000 years was extremely slim. Oratin looked at Gu Mengmeng's changing expression and did not know what she was thinking about. He could only continue to persuade her, "I am not as good with words as Leah, but I know that it is the most suitable arrangement for me to guard this flower." As Oratin said that, he knelt down on one knee with his palms facing upwards. Elvis told Gu Mengmeng that this was an expression of submission from the orcs. Oratin had never treated Gu Mengmeng like this before. He had really thought it through and was willing to guard this flower and spend a long 1,000 years in the Mecca desert. Gu Mengmeng sighed in exasperation. She could only think that although she did not have a son like Snake, she would probably have to drag the next messenger of the beast deity to watch a few television dramas with her in order to plan for Oratin. However, Overbearing Senior Falls in Love with Me was, after all, a youth romance movie. In the future, Oratin would be starring in a culinary show like A Bite of China. Gu Mengmeng expressed her worries and felt immense pressure. Looking at Oratin kneeling by her feet, looking as if he would not get up until she agreed, Gu Mengmeng finally sighed and gave in. "Oratin, thank you." Gu Mengmeng handed the red spider lily to Oratin. Oratin placed the red spider lily into his chest right in front of Gu Mengmeng. Then, he smiled for the first time in his life. "You don't have to thank me. You just have to urge Leah to fulfill his promise and send me food." Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment before replying, "Oratin, do you know? You look very good when you smile." Oratin was stunned by Gu Mengmeng's words. He touched the corner of his lips and said, "Looks like I have made the right choice to guard this flower." Chapter 1623. Gu Mengmeng tore off a piece of beast skin, wrote the word "wine" on it and hung it on the door. She then got Elvis to use his sharp claws to carve a couplet on the green stones on both sides of the door. The first couplet was, "Chasing after the wind and the moon is the order of the king," while the second couplet was, "Morning clouds, evening rain, horse legs, people's hearts." This couplet was written on the door in Maggie Chung's version of Dragon Gate Inn. Gu Mengmeng felt that that version was the most classic version and did not accept any rebuttals. She taught the words on the couplet to Oratin and told him that if the person who came 1,000 years later could recite this couplet, it would prove that he was the one she found. After all, she did not dare to be as unreliable as Wang Xiaoxin and use TikTok videos as a secret signal. What if the person she chose did not use TikTok? Was she going to demonstrate it personally as the beast deity? The beast deity version of kelp dance or learn to meow? Haha, the beast deity didn't care about his reputation. When the wine flag fluttered in the wind, Gu Mengmeng finally waved her hand and said goodbye to Oritin. She no longer had to travel a long distance. She just smiled and stared at Oritin, then slowly disappeared into the heat of the desert, like a evaporated mirage. Gu Mengmeng brought Elvis and Leah back to the illusion realm and officially took over the role of the beast deity. She was in charge of marriage in the beast world, and just like the aunties in the neighborhood committee, she helped all the wronged wives and husbands in the area under her jurisdiction. She was also biased towards the females without any principles. In that illusion realm, there was a boundless grassland, layers of mountains and flowing streams. There were no 4 seasons and every day was as warm as spring with beautiful weather. She would sneak back to the beast world during winter every year and return to Snake's Cave. Her son and daughter would also come back to spend the winter with her. The red coral bracelet that she had prepared for Sandy was also given to Heda to bring back to solder for Sandy. Heda said that when Sandy received the bracelet, she bawled her eyes out and no one could stop her. Colin and Bode could only frown in heartache but could not say anything to comfort her. In the end, they just patted Sandy's back and sighed silently. As for Sandy, even when she fell asleep, there were still tears in the corners of her eyes. But not long after, she smiled. The next day, Sandy told Colin that she dreamed that she had returned to St. Nazaire and saw Gu Mengmeng roasting meat at the platform of the deity's punishment. It smelled so good that she really wanted to eat it, so she went forward. After that, Gu Mengmeng sat at the side of the platform of the deity's punishment, smiled and extended her hand towards her, saying, "Hello, I'm Gu Mengmeng." Chapter 1624. She is. Leah also came over and looked at this unfamiliar face in confusion. Gu Mengmeng answered mysteriously, the next messenger of the beast deity. Elvis and Leah looked at each other, then at Gu Mengmeng, asking, "Why did you choose her?" Gu Mengmeng leaned into Elvis's arms and said, "I wrote our experiences in the beast world into a novel and published it on the modern web. She is the most loyal reader of this novel. I am not as scheming as Wang Xiaoxin, so I can't come up with too many plans, so I can only use the most direct method to choose the next messenger of the beast deity." Gu Mengmeng smiled at the girl through the screen and said, "If it's her, she will definitely be able to do better than me. At least she won't be as helpless as when I first came to the beast world, doing so many stupid things and taking so many detours." Elvis chuckled and asked, "So you have been sitting there without moving for this period of time, writing this?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "From the start of the serialization to the end of the publication, it took a total of 237 days. The day it ended was exactly the 1000th day since Snake left me." Leah swayed his tail and asked with a smile, "Are you sure that this weak-looking girl can really help you gather the 7 treasures?" Gu Mengmeng nodded seriously and said, "I believe that if it's her, she will definitely be able to do it. Moreover, don't we still have to help her?" Elvis kissed Gu Mengmeng's forehead and said, "I will always listen to Xiao Meng. Whatever you say, it will be." Gu Mengmeng nodded and then said to the girl through the screen, "Hi, my messenger of the beast deity. When you come to the beast world, don't panic, the orcs here are mostly simple and kind, they will not hurt you. Snake and Grace are really important to me, so please help me bring them back. If you need a capable assistant, I recommend Oritin in the Mecca Desert. It doesn't matter if you forget the words on the couplet. I think you can just roast some meat or stir-fry some dishes to take him down. The one guarding the entrance of the Snake King Valley is my son, Qi Xian. When he was young, he suffered a lot, but it was also because of this that he obtained an opportunity. The kiss of the ocean and the soul of the forest both remain in his body, and he is the only one of my 4 sons who is still alive. If you are stopped by him at the entrance of the Snake King Valley, I suggest that you shout, "Mother is the best in this world," 3 times. This is the secret signal that I have agreed upon with him. As long as you shout this, he will know that you are my man and won't make things difficult for you. The love of the sky is being guarded by the vulture race. Let me tell you a secret, the current vulture emissary is also a very handsome and abstinent Prince Charming. Every year during the dry season in Moda Mountains, there would be half a day when the wind would stop blowing. At that time, he would go down the mountain to patrol. You just had to stand by the stream and sing, "Just happened to meet you," and he would bring you up the Moda Mountains. Because that song is the engagement song between me, the previous messenger of the beast deity, and the guardian god of Moda Mountains. In the beast world, no one knows how to sing it. As for the kiss of the ocean, who knows how many generations of Melinda's descendants are guarding it. The bad news is that the deep sea has not been peaceful these few years and the conflicts between the races are rather chaotic. But the good news is that they have all inherited Melinda's and Carter's beauty and abilities. Each generation is more enchanting than the previous, so beautiful that no words can describe them. Anyway, as a beast deity who already has a partner and does not intend to harm young children, I will not go to the deep sea anymore. I am really afraid that I will not be able to control myself from spoiling other people's little fry. So, I will leave all these handsome men to you, my dear messenger of the beast deity. Just like what Wang Xiaoxin said, my story ends here. Everything in the future is waiting for you to write. I will wait for you in the beast world, see you there, never leave. Aside from the topic, warm love on the pillow, don't stop your medicine, Mr. CEO, Lu Jincheng, Xia Xiangxi, let me tell you, to be my woman, you must have a pure heart. Xia Xiangxi, speak normally. Lu Jincheng, it's very simple. First, you must know how to find trouble for me to solve, and not let me feel bored. Secondly, you must have a rich material life, and not let the money I earn be left in the bank to grow worms. Thirdly, if there are other women who have ill intentions towards me, you must stop them and protect your man's chastity by hook or by crook. Fourthly, the most important point is that you can only have me in your heart, you are not allowed to like other men. Many years later, Lu Jincheng, I heard it all, you said you love other men. Xia Xiangxi rolled her eyes and asked, is the other man called Lu Nangua? Lu Jincheng, yes. Xia Xiangxi, let me tell you, not only did I say I love him today, I also want to sleep with him tonight. Go sleep in the living room. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.